My first one comes from Economy, Society, and History. This is Hans Hoppe talking about the importance of taking the consistent libertarian position, which means that no double standard should exist morally or economically within society, making something like a state nothing that should be desired by any sane person. He says, once you accept the principle of government, namely that there must be a judicial monopoly and the power to tax, once you accept this principle incorrectly as a just principle, then any idea or any notion of restraining or limiting government power and safeguarding individual liberty and property becomes illusory. Rather, under monopolistic auspices, the price of justice and protection will continually rise, and the quality of justice and protection will continually fall. A tax funded protection agency is a contradiction in terms. That is, an expropriating property protector. It's really important because once you get to the root of the issue, then people can generally have a understanding of why the state is such a dangerous belief system to engage in. Whereas if your primary objection is, well, I think Bush was really bad and Obama was in over his head, and I think Trump was very boorish. Well, all of these could be solved with it if government is just a neutral tool. We just have to get the right people involved. Hoppe gets down to the incentive structure, the reason that the state is bad inherently in this excellent book, Economy, Society, and History. Sheldon, what is this discussion with Heather McDonald when race trumps merit?
Well, this is a conversation between Peter Boghossian, who's a social philosopher, social commentator, and Heather McDonald of the Manhattan Institute. She's just written a book called "When Race Trumps Merit," how she's saying how woke philosophy or actually preferences, like racial preferences. She's not talking about gender here, but racial preferences or equity is the word she uses, sacrifices excellence, beauty, and lives. And she makes a very good case for her argument here. And she's been in conversation with other people like Glenn Lowry and a few others. You can find her. The book just came out, so she's all over YouTube. And her argument there is that when anything goes ahead of merit, like in all sorts of things, college admissions and other things like that, you have to put other things aside. And so if merit is not the chief concern, but equity, this idea that everybody ought to be all groups, no matter how we define them, ought to be represented in every profession and every line of every area of life, in the same proportion as they are in the general population, then you're going to have to put merit aside and pick people according to what they look like, basically. I mean, not according to their merit, but the irrelevant things like the skin tone or something else. I mean, best example I guess you can give most lately was Biden's when he had a Supreme Court vacancy to fill. He said, "I'm going to pick a black woman." Now, this has nothing to do with black women, but the person he picked, I mean, even to herself, can't say, I must be the most qualified person in the country because Biden picked me, and no one else really can say that. The most he can say is, in his judgment, she was the most qualified black woman, but that's different from saying the most qualified, legal mind in the country. So she talks about science and medicine and how we're jeopardizing that by admitting people to colleges who by changing, either ignoring test results or dumbing down standardized tests, and admitting them to schools where they become doctors and scientists. We're going to lose. We're going to lose quality there because the most excellent people are not getting in, and this also is happening in the arts where Western art, which is stigmatized as white or male or something like that, is put down in reference to anything that isn't those things. And so we're seeing this in the selection of music that's being performed by symphony orchestras, and just things like that. And then when she talks about lives being jeopardized, of course she means what's happening with police. And to the extent in the current environment, in the very short run, if you defund police or pull back police, there are going to be victims, and the victims are from the very group that the advocates of this defunding say they want to help, namely marginalized Black communities, because they tend to be the great, predominate the victims of crime. And if so much crime is committed by young Black men for all kinds of reasons, rotten schools, rotten homes, brought up in neighborhoods with rotten cultures, their victims, overwhelmingly are other Black residents of those very poor areas. We're not talking about middle class areas. It's so the term is black on black crime, which is a phrase nobody seems to like. They want to talk about police killings, and while we need to talk about police killings, of course, she doesn't slight that. Police killings are tiny compared to people getting killed in the street by other kids and other young men. And so she's drawing attention to all this. She's obviously anguished about this, and is trying to bring people's attention to it. So good luck to her.
My next one is from Brian Kaplan's book, Voters as Mad Scientists, Essays on Political Irrationality. I put this on the Libertarian Institute blog and titled it, What War Hawks Would Sound Like If They Weren't Psychopaths. Here is the excerpt from Kaplan's book. Modern warfare almost always leads to killing lots of innocents. If governments were held to the same standards as individuals, these killings would be manslaughter, if not murder. This doesn't mean that war is never justified, but the reasonable, hawkish mood is sorrow and constant yearning for a peaceful path. The kind of emotions that flow out of, we are in a tragic situation. After painstaking research on all available options, we regretfully conclude that we have to kill many thousands of innocent civilians in order to avoid even greater evils. This is true even after adjusting for the inaccuracy of our past predictions about foreign policy. Kaplan says, I have never personally known a hawk who expresses such moods, and know of none in the public eye. Instead, the standard hawk moods are anger and machismo. Ted Cruz recently said, I don't know if sand can glow in the dark, but we're going to find out, is typical. Indeed, the hawks I personally know don't just ignore civilian deaths. When I raise the issue, they cavalierly appeal to the collective guilt of their enemies. Sometimes they laugh. As a result, I put little weight on what hawks say. This doesn't mean their view is false, but it is strong reason to think it's false. Good news, the hawks and socialists on both sides are extremely shallow. It's up to us to give them an alternative where they can land. Sheldon, competition as a discovery procedure. What's this?
This is a famous article by F.A. Hayek. I'm kind of following on to what I did. I think it was last week. I talked about the use of knowledge in society. This was a theme that he returned to many times, and what he's saying there, as you can tell from the title, that there's no point. He said there's no point in competition if you knew the outcome already, if you could infallibly know. Well, economics, at least in his day, I have a feeling it's gotten a little better, at least in some places. In his day, there was the sense that the model of competition that mainstream economists were using, which means not Austrians, but some others, was that everything was already known. We already know what resources there are, how scarce they are, what people want. We know all that. So now it's just like a formal problem. Maybe if we had a big enough computer, we could figure it out, right? We could make all the choices, and in light of all that data, which by supposition kind of exists somewhere. Now, it may be that the economists didn't actually believe that, but they said, let's act as if that's the case and then go from there. Hayek wants to say that, oh, that's like, why play a game if you already know who's going to win? The point is, we don't know that stuff. We don't know that information. It is not data, strictly speaking. Data implies it's in a database. You could look it up. You could go to your computer and find out everything you wanted to know. But the point is, it's a discovery process. The market and competition are discovery. In other words, there's things we learn that we don't know. And why do we learn it? Because individuals are acting freely. They're making their own individual plans, but they inevitably have to do some modification of their plans because in order to make them mesh with other people's plans, right? And also there's all this spontaneity and serendipity. I go to the store expecting to buy something, but I may, once I'm there and see what's available on the shelf, unpredictably, I may say, you know what, I have a better idea. I think this serves my interest better. I have a better, quote, near future by buying this product rather than that product. I couldn't have told you that in advance. If there was somebody with a clipboard asking, with a questionnaire before I went in the store, asking questions about what I was going to get, I could give them honest answers as of then. But if I go into the store and see stuff in front of me that I didn't anticipate, I may make completely different decisions. Well, if you try to plan the economy, or if you so heavily regulate it that you're getting very close to outright planning anyway, then you're missing out on all that. And there's no way that the marketplace, the economy, can really serve individuals and create kind of a general welfare for a great society, meaning a society of many, many people. In our case, 325 million people or so. So this is very important. Like I say, I'm led to believe by various people, including other Austrian economists, that things have gotten a little bit better. And I think Hayek might be one of the reasons he made such a big deal of this. But it's also all through Austrian theory, Mises and his calculation argument about the impossibility of socialism and planning, and all the way carried through people like Rothbard and Israel Kirzner and even later younger people, Joe Salerno and a whole bunch of people, Bob Murphy. We can't ever forget this, that it's not only the market doesn't only allow freedom, as important as it is, it allows the production of knowledge that we would not have otherwise, and without which we would be very poor, and only a fraction of the people living today could remain alive.
I had to do a second Kaplan one just because his new book is so good. It's called Voters as Mad Scientists. I titled this entry, Occupational Licensing Increases Prices and Deprives People of Options. Kaplan says, imagine you are just doing some online shopping on, say, Amazon, a place many people go, and you're trying to save some money. You want a product or a service, and you sort by relevance. You can choose things like the newest and most popular, highest price, average price, highest customer review, relevance. But he says, imagine you are trying to save money, so you click sort by price, lowest to highest. And out of nowhere, a kind social justice advocate pops up onto your screen because the NSA is monitoring your web searches, and this do-gooder says, sorry, sorting by price low to high has just been banned. You're going to have to sort your options some other way. You ask, banned? Why? The social justice advocate says, people who use this option tend to buy substandard products. We need to protect them. You aren't protecting anyone. You're just making it harder for people to find attractive deals. To which the do-gooder says, these deals may seem attractive, but they're not. You buy cheap, you get cheap. But everyone already knows this. People buy cheap stuff because they value their money more than higher quality. Ah, so you're one of those dogmatic market fundamentalists. Let everyone buy whatever they want and let competition take care of them. Give me a break. This is such an interesting dialogue that he sets up here because it really gets to the imperialist heart of statism, where Vivek Ramaswamy is so brilliant. He knows that what's best for us is to violently stop billions of people between China and America from making voluntary exchanges. It also means the progressives need to give everyone a license in order for them to make domestic voluntary transactions. It gives us fewer choices. It gives employees less leverage in the labor market because they're more reliant on a big corporation or a boss and don't have as easy an attempt to get a side hustle or increase possible income revenues. So I thought this was vitally important. Brian Kaplan's most recent book, Voters as Mad Scientists, is really terrific. That is all we have for you today. Thank you for watching the Libertarian Institute YouTube and Odyssey channel. Sheldon Richmond, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.